All right, let's take you back to one of our leading stories now. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his entourage are leaving for the United States this evening for his much-anticipated face-to-face meeting with his counterpart, Donald Trump. The meeting is set to discuss bilateral, regional and global issues of interest, and it'll take place on Wednesday at the White House in Washington, D.C. Let's speak now ahead of that meeting, and we're joined by Freedom Front Plus leader, Dr. Corné Mulder, on what he believes South Africa's message should be. Dr. Mulder, thanks for your time. As a GNU partner, what do you believe President Ramaphosa's key message about South Africa should be to his counterpart, Donald Trump?
Well, let me start off by saying that I'm quite concerned about the visit in the sense that I think it's premature. I think we run a huge risk at this stage for a diplomatic catastrophe, and that I think the whole visit is premature. You must understand that at the moment, the relations between South Africa and the United States are severely strained. Neither country at the moment does have an ambassador. We don't have an American ambassador in South Africa, and there's no South African ambassador in the United States. And if we did have normal diplomatic relations between the countries and everything was cordial, then a visit by the heads of state, I think, would be appropriate. But I really think that the visit is premature, and that also does have an impact on the kind of message that perhaps would be taken now, but it could be a problem.
The minister in the presidency, who also happens to be the cabinet spokesperson, telling the media last week that this meeting is actually at the invitation of the United States, and therefore they are, I suppose, merely honoring that. Do you believe that South Africa, and indeed Ramaphosa, should have perhaps taken a step backwards?
Well, I hear what the Honourable Minister is saying, but it's not necessarily actually factually correct. I think there was some interaction between our president and the president of the United States, and coming from that discussion, there was an invitation sent at that stage. I understand that the interaction was there and that it was necessary. But as I've said, I think the visit is premature. If you look at the differences between South Africa and the United States at this stage, the relationship is at a very bad state at this stage, and I think we are running a risk of a diplomatic embarrassment and a catastrophe. For the simple reason, one must understand that the President of the United States has made his position quite clear in public. As far as I understand, there are some non-negotiables from the Trump administration. And some of these things I know from the perspective from the South African president's side, and let me say from the ANC side, are also not really accommodative in that instance. One must also understand, if you talk to me about the government of national unity, I think that is one of the flaws in the current composition of the government of national unity, that it was agreed by, I don't know whom, at the beginning of this process, that international relations would be the sole domain of the former ruling party, and I think that creates a problem. So it's not that simple or that clear to say this should be the message. And I think if you look at what the press basically says now and what is being speculated, I think that the message is going to be that Mr. Trump, relax, things are all fine and secure at home. And I don't think that is the kind of message that is going to be a successful message at all.
You make the point repeatedly that South Africa's relations with the US are at an all-time low right now, and perhaps this is not an opportune moment for Ramaphosa to engage Trump. Let me perhaps hasten and say that the Africana resettlement program, is that part of your major concern that characterizes these relations? This particular visit to the US happens on the back of the 49 Afrikaners leaving for the United States. Let's get your party's understanding and thoughts around that departure first. What do you make of the resettlement program by Donald Trump?
Well, I think that is one of the issues that it clearly stipulates the strained relations between South Africa, because you must understand, and we all know, that the 49 South Africans who received refugee status and moved to the United States, that is a direct result of the executive order earlier given by President Trump. So he feels quite strongly about that. With regard to these 49 South Afrikaners who basically left, it's sad. It's really sad, and I feel very sad about that in the sense I don't want to see a single Afrikaner leave the country of their birth. It shouldn't be like that. We should rather ask the question, what then is the problem? Why did they feel it necessary to leave South Africa and to feel that they've got a better life or a better opportunity to go forward in life in the United States? And I believe we should do everything possible to address those kind of concerns that brought people to the position where they left.
We'll talk about the underlying causes in a moment, but was President Trump correct, or was he absolutely wrong to do that, to take this particular step? Because he is communicating a very negative message about our country.
I don't think he was wrong. I think he acted within his authority, obviously, and in terms of his perception of what's going on in South Africa. And I don't think it's wrong. One can argue about the definition about refugees, etc., and those kind of things. He thought it was a necessary thing to make that possible, to reach out to a specific community, and he has also now extended that. If you look at the communications on the American Foreign Department of International Relations in the United States, they have extended that to refer to minorities in South Africa. And that brings us to the whole question, does minorities feel that they are accommodated in South Africa or not? And that is a different question, a different discussion, I guess.
If you say Trump is not wrong by accommodating Afrikaners under the banner of refugees, who is more deserving of a refugee status? Who is more deserving of being described as undergoing a genocide between Afrikaners in South Africa and Palestinians in Gaza?
No, now you jump to the whole genocide debate. That's a different debate.
But that's what Trump says.
Yeah, well, that is from his perspective, and that is what he basically is saying. The fact of the matter is that in terms of his authority and in terms of the policies of the Trump administration, he found it relevant and the necessary thing to reach out to Afrikaners in South Africa. I welcome that. It's absolutely essential that somebody is listening to us. We've got a case. We've got something to put in front of the world. And I think it's absolutely positive that the President of the United States is prepared to listen. It's for the United States in terms of their foreign policy to decide who they would like to invite as refugees and who they don't want. As I've correctly said, I don't want any Afrikaner to leave. We want to create a future in South Africa. That is what we are committed to. But then we need to address the reasons why some people found it necessary to leave.
So let's talk about the underlying causes then of why you believe these Afrikaners have received a refugee status from the Trump administration, which, by the way, has been challenged as being morally wrong, even by a church in America that the Trump administration has instructed to try and accommodate these Afrikaners.
No, that church was involved in the past in accommodating refugees, and they decided they don't want to assist Afrikaners. That's their choice. I can assure you there are many other people that gladly assist. And if you look at the way that these Afrikaners were received in the United States, not on a low level, but on a very high level, they were received by the Deputy Minister of Foreign Relations in the United States.
Again, it doesn't take away the fact that this is a church with a 40-year experience of resettling refugees in America, and this time they're even willing to forgo their relationship with the federal government of the United States, particularly because they believe that there are people who are more deserving than what they see being brought to America.
Yeah, sure, they may believe that. We all know that there's great division within the United States, that people have very strong positions on different sides and different issues. And if that church feels that way, that's for them to decide. But I don't think that we should, let me take it from a different angle. Should I now as an Afrikaner say, because that church doesn't want to accommodate Afrikaners in the United States, we must accept that everything is just fine? No, it's not. It's their decision, so be it. Let's get the job done.
So let's talk about what you believe are the underlying causes for the Afrikaners leaving for the United States under a refugee status.
Well, first of all, we all heard that President Ramaphosa referred to these 49 people as cowards, and I think that is it's a big mistake to refer to individuals as cowards who leave South Africa. They don't have protection, and we can't. It's not for us to judge what the personal circumstances of these individuals are. We don't know what happened in their lives. We don't know how things affect them, and they've taken that decision and they've grasped that opportunity to start a new life. And as I've said, I would prefer that they stay. I would like to see that we get South Africa on the footing where everybody feels accommodated and feel that they can stay and have a bright future here. Now, if you talk about the underlying issues, many things are relevant. For example, we believe, and if you look at what President Trump has said from his side, he wants security for the Afrikaner as a minority. That's his right to say that, but also for the farming community. And he's very concerned about violence and what's being perpetrated in the rural areas in terms of the murder of farmers. Now, the irony is that both the president and the ANC has denied for many years now that something like farm murders exist. They've said that quite bluntly. They've said that abroad, etc., etc. I differ from that. And it's interesting that the deputy president found it necessary this very week on Thursday to visit Nampo, the agricultural expo, and to lay a wreath at the war of remembrance for all the farmers that have been murdered in South Africa. So, with all due respect, you can't have it both ways. Either you recognize that that's a reality, that it needs to be addressed, or you deny that. And then I really question the timing, a couple of days before we have this interaction with the United States. And it's necessary that we have this kind of interaction on a presidential level. But I think, first of all, we should have done our homework behind the scenes on an official level and straightened things out that when the heads of state meet, all those issues have been addressed. And that has not been the case. They're all outstanding matters at the moment.
Mr. Mulder, as a member of parliament, someone who is paid by taxpayers of South Africa, I find it hard to believe that you are not willing to call out President Trump, not once in this interview, about his... No, let me finish. About his message that there is a genocide in South Africa.
No, don't put words in my mouth. No one in South Africa, not the Freedom Front Plus, nor any of the other organizations, has claimed that there is a genocide. I didn't say that either.
Yeah, but I'm saying call him out.
Call him out. Should I reprimand the President of the United States? Let's keep to the facts. The facts are that there are a problem in terms of South Africa, in terms of the rural areas where farmers are being murdered. I will invite you to come with me to Nampo next year, and you can also lay a wreath for those people that have been murdered. It's completely unacceptable. And I know what the argument sometimes is to say, yeah, but there are other murders as well. With regard to farmers and the Boer Afrikaner people, they are the only ones where songs are being sung, kill the farmer, kill the Boer, and that is not being rejected by the government at the moment. That can never be acceptable. So we've never said there's a genocide, but that there's a problem. Clearly, there's a difficult, absolute problem. And we've requested that from the Freedom Front Plus's point of view. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that I'm a member of parliament and being paid by taxpayer. I don't know what that imputation that you're trying to make there. Why can't we declare murders in the agricultural areas a priority crime like we've done in other instances and deal with it? That's not being done. And if you look at the statistics, farm murders are being done in the most brutal way, where people are burned with gas stoves, with boiling water, where drills are used to drill holes in people's knees. What is that? And if the United States are concerned about that, yes, it's not a genocide, but there's something seriously wrong, and we need to address that. And that's only one issue. We have not discussed other issues in terms of the race-based policies of the government, in terms of employment equity, the regulations, the threats to Afrikaans, the Afrikaner culture. The question basically is this: how do we protect the minorities in South Africa?
Yeah.
That is the test of a real, true democracy.
Mr. Mulder, I'm not going to repeat what many observers have said, and that is that crime affects everyone in South Africa, and it visits them in the most brutal of ways. And I don't want us to get stuck in this, but I hope to engage you next time when we have a little bit more time. But thank you tonight for...
Thank you very much, and my invitation stands to come and lay a wreath at the memorial next year. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for your time. Corné Mulder, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus.